sensing this danger. This is the greatest showman! He is floating on air now! He's going to send it back. Dawn, bang! Down he goes. They love it!
Hello and welcome to the NEMBC's Multicultural AFL Footy Show. My name is Vanessa Gatica. Richmond, West Coast, Swans, Melbourne and Adelaide continue to disappoint, while 4 thrillers were decided by less than a goal. The Cats, Blues, Giants and Hawks won the tight ones, while Port Adelaide, Brisbane and Gold Coast again went on their merry way. The Bulldogs and Saints impressed, while the GWS found form to deliver a shock loss to the Magpies. There were controversial statements by some coaches about the current length and style of the game, while Collingwood's Jeremy Howe will be out for the year with a serious knee injury. And if that wasn't enough, due to the outbreak of COVID-19 in Victoria, Queensland health officials banned the Tigers flying to the Gold Coast to play the Eagles on Thursday night. I am joined by my 2 co-panelists this evening, Javier Sincang and Gabriel De Angelo. Hello, guys.
Hello, Vanessa.
Vanessa, Javier.
Thursday evening, the Swans playing at home lowered their colors to the Bulldogs. On Friday night, the Giants narrowly beat the Magpies and St Kilda delivered a savage blow to Richmond on Saturday, while the West Coast were humiliated by Port Adelaide. Javier, what are your comments, please?
Oh, we are back. Doggies are back.
Amazing, right?
The way they won it with good pressure and everything. And someone laughed at me last time when I said that it's going to be...
Who laughed at you?
I don't know, someone next to me.
I just laughed at you in general.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
That's not even about footy. That's just in general I laugh at you.
When I said that it's going to decide who's more accurate in front of goals, that's going to decide.
Yeah.
And I've got the stats to prove that.
Okay.
That they both took inside 50 marks, 13 each. Yeah, then tackles inside 50, in fact, Sydney did more. And then they both had 42 each inside 50s. So where was the difference? Just shots at goal. They had 17 shots, Bulldogs, and they had 14. And out of that, because Sydney was more inaccurate, Bulldogs won. And well, they did like 9 behinds too. So they were just better in scoring the shots. So the middle battle was fought hard, but it all came down to that. So yeah, just wanted to make my point. That's all.
Sorry, Professor Habia. Jeez, unbelievable.
That's it. And the other one, I believe, GWS. I think that surprised me a bit, but I believe they had their measure before with Brodie Grundy. Although he was able to get most of the hitouts, but the ball never went to them because they were quite good at clearance. And then the idea of tagging steel side bottom, I think that sort of got them. So. Nevertheless, GWS is back on track, I believe.
Yeah, well, like you said, I think that the tagging of steel side bottom definitely helped their cause. I think that the way they just sort of slowed down the midfield of Collingwood, which we've said, you know, Main, side bottom, Pendlebury, a fantastic combination. I think that definitely helped their cause. I don't know if we can say that they're back. I think, yes, they're back in the winner's circle, but I don't know if they're back because GWS is still a little bit unconvincing at the moment. But, you know, we've talked at length about Adelaide, how, you know, the Sturm and Drang of what's happening at Adelaide, how they're at a crisis. But I think we've been missing Richmond, for example. I think that Richmond, their performance against St Kilda, look, I'm a St Kilda fan, as you all know. I'm happy that we won, but the way that the Tigers performed, it was really, really mediocre. It was really bad. I mean, Damien Hardwick last week had 4 changes, took out 4 players, including Marlon Pickett, who's you know, the Cinderella story of last year's grand final. So really good running players. They took them out, and still, you know, it didn't deliver that kick in the bum that the players needed, because you would think, wow, these players are gone, I need to deliver. And it didn't happen. I mean, St Kilda basically played their style, Richmond's style, and won really, really convincingly. But the way that Richmond play, it's almost like what you said off air, like when we were just discussing it earlier, they just don't want it.
They just don't want to be there. I think we had that chat last time as well, and a few other challenges too, that after finishing the game, they were like laughing out and everything. That's fine, nothing wrong in laughing or anything, but
it's not a good look.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that, what it means is you don't have that hunger anymore. Yeah. And we all know, if you got the hunger, any team can beat any team at the moment if you have the hunger. So they're probably lacking that, and that's why it is showing on the ladder as well.
Oh, absolutely. And you can also put West Coast into that column as well, because the way they performed against Port Adelaide, which does have the hunger. I think Port Adelaide have been amazing. A fantastic victory against West Coast, just so clinical. And West Coast, they just don't want to be there. They don't want to be at the hub, you can just tell. But Port Adelaide, my God, they've been playing so well. So clinical, just so good. It's like, it really is like night and day from last season. It was almost like, remember how Ken Hinckley's job was a little bit, under scrutiny, but this time round it's just a radical team, like radically different team from what it was last season. But kudos to them, and let's see what happens, this week.
Yep.
Exactly right. Carlton came from 2 goals down in the last quarter to notch another narrow win by a point from Essendon, and the Gold Coast defeated Fremantle by 13 points. What did you make of those 2 games?
I thought Carlton, congratulations to them. Like really, I was actually happy that they won, even though I tipped Essendon, but I thought Carlton, their performance was great. Jack Silvani, I think there's still that injury cloud in regards to his ribs, whether he might play.
He would be playing.
I don't think he'll be, and it's a big out, but they still kept going, they still performed really well. Essendon, they're sort of like under a little bit of a cloud at the moment, but congratulations to Carlton, they were really good. That was another win that they really needed. They needed to win that one last week, but this time around at the MCG against Essendon at Old Foes, they needed to win that one as well, and they did it. So congratulations to Carlton. And Gold Coast and Fremantle, well look, Gold Coast, they've just been a revelation this season. They've been so good.
Amazing.
And like I said last week, I think Rao, he's up front, I think, for the Brownlow medal.
Yep. No doubt about that. And I believe Carlton, I think they're giving their fans a hard time at the moment, the way they're playing at the moment. But on the other hand side, we saw that Eddie nearly turned into a villain from hero last week.
Yeah, that's
I think
true.
the last few seconds is really crucial for Eddie at the moment in every game.
Yeah.
And this time, we're giving the 50. Lucky it didn't work for Essendon, but he nearly turned from hero to villain this time.
He did.
Don't go anywhere, as we'll be back after the break with reviews of last Sunday's games and the AFL's late change to the Round 5 fixture. Welcome back to the show. Sunday saw Brisbane beat Adelaide by 37 points, and it could have been much worse had the Lions kicked straight. Melbourne took on Geelong at the MCG and went within 3 points of stealing victory, while Hawthorn and the Roos fogged out a thriller at Marvel. Gabriel, your observations, please.
You're absolutely right. It could have been much worse if Brisbane were accurate. If Brisbane were accurate, it could have been well into probably the 100-point margin, because they just dominated Adelaide. It was like watching a seniors versus a reserves team. It was just so dominant. Is there any way that I can really describe the way that Brisbane Lions played against Adelaide? And Cameron, what an amazing mark. And don't Adelaide wish that they could have him back into the side.
Exactly.
But it was just a fantastic performance from Brisbane all round. I thought that the Hawthorn and North Melbourne game was really good. It was well balanced, because we said this before, North Melbourne, they've got this ability to just finish quite quickly. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, but you can never write them off until the very end. And they showed a lot of that strong fighting spirit that they've been showing under Rhys Shaw. And I have to say, number 26 of North Melbourne, Tyrone Thomas, I think he's just a gem. Such a good young player, 20 years old, so mature, just such a danger whenever he's around the ball. Anything can happen. He's a fantastic young player, but they're still, developing. And I keep saying North Melbourne, they're one to watch this season. And the game against Melbourne and Geelong, again, Geelong, I'm just not convinced by them. Yes, they won, but they were just very unconvincing. A lot of unforced errors, a lot of mistakes. I'm just still not, like I said, just not convinced by the way the Geelong are playing. It's not the Geelong of old. And really, Melbourne should have won that game if Salem, when he had the ball 1 minute to go, if he just hurried up, because he just wasted time and gave it to Geelong. I thought that was just a wasted opportunity from Melbourne's point of view.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Geelong played like that, but it was like they're playing for free kicks a lot as well, and then was slowing the game down.
Yeah.
There was like a lot of stuff with regards to that. And Brisbane, like we know that they're fantastic this year, and even if they don't kick too many goals, but they will kick enough to beat any team. And Adelaide, they're acting as a percentage booster for for any team at the moment. If you're good, you can get a lot of huge percentage boost out of that.
Yeah.
And moving on, round 5 fixture has been adjusted by the AFL with Richmond to play Melbourne at the G and West Coast to take on Sydney in Carrara because of the Queensland government concerns over Victoria's rising COVID-19 infection rates. The Richmond-West Coast clash scheduled for tonight has been postponed. To accommodate these changes, the AFL has moved Saturday's St Kilda match against Carlton from the MCG to Thursday night at Marvel Stadium. Queensland issued an ultimatum last Monday requiring all Queensland-based sports teams, regardless of code, to quarantine for 14 days if they play a match in Melbourne or play a Melbourne-based team in another state. Queensland teams will also have to self-isolate for 14 days if they play a match in another state against a Melbourne team or a team playing in Melbourne. And that is the current state of play, people.
Looking at the new fixture, the opening game of the round on Thursday night, St Kilda plays host to the Blues, both emerging sides and both with 2 wins against formidable opposition. Looks like an interesting encounter actually. Then on Friday evening, Collingwood take on the Bombers in another top game of footy. Gabriel, since you are a Saints tragic, you go first, please.
It is tragic to be a Saints supporter.
No, this year.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah. Look, if you would have told me last year that Carlton and St Kilda was going to be a Thursday night blockbuster game, I would have said, guards season, because I wouldn't. There was no way anybody could have predicted this.
Yeah, but COVID can do anything.
Yeah, and nobody could predict COVID as well. But yeah, this really does look like a really enticing encounter because both teams, like you said, they're both up and coming emerging sides, and they both have young, exciting prospects and players. As a St Kilda fan, obviously I would like St Kilda to win. Also, more so to annoy our director. But, if St Kilda's, main players like Butler, who's been fantastic, Zach Jones, I'm a big fan of his, these players that have experience and are the right players in the right positions, which is, fantastic from the recruiters, the way that they brought those players into St Kilda. They've worked wonders, really. I think that St Kilda and Carlton, they're both evenly matched in a way. 2 new coaches that have come in, amazing work that both these coaches have done, Ratton and Carlton's coach Teague. Almost forgot it for a second, but both teams have been really impressive under both these new coaches, and it just proved that they needed that change at the top. It's almost like Carlton are no longer playing on eggshells. The way that they play, the way that they just produce the ball from the defence up to the forward line, it's almost free-flowing. And when they win and when they smile and joke, it's almost like this relief. It's like this release of this exhaustion of, okay, finally, we're back to the Carlton of old, so to speak. So it's going to be a really interesting encounter. I want St Kilda to win. I don't know. Hopefully they will, but I'm going to tip St Kilda. But Carlton could win because St Kilda have been loss, win, loss, win. So that means Carlton could win that game against St Kilda. So who knows? But Collingwood and Essendon, 2 rivals, 2 great teams playing, but I think Collingwood, they're just too strong for Essendon at the moment.
Yeah, I think Collingwood is very clean as well,
Yeah.
the way they play. But when it comes to the pressure, they're applying pressure as well. But when the other team sort of applies pressure, I think that's what happened against GWS as well. If the other team gets like a measure of them and then sort of take tips from what GWS has done, I think Essendon can do that as well, and they've got the ammunition for that. But considering the situation at the moment, I believe Collingwood will bounce back against Essendon and they will win this one. And Saints, like I've been saying right from the start and this year, that they are good, and I'm hoping that they perform well, and they are performing well as well. So it's good days for St Kilda fans at the moment.
Well,
I think we've come far.
Don't
far.
jinx it.
Yeah, we've
Please
come
don't
very
jinx
far
it.
from people burning their membership cards, and this time probably a lot of more people joining St Kilda. So it's good footy all round.
But it's good to see St Kilda and Carlton, especially Carlton, because
yes.
their supporters, they've suffered for a long time. So it's good to see both those clubs, you know, starting to sort of come out from the wilderness a little bit. So it's good to see.
Yeah, but this one I believe Carlton might come on top.
Thank you, guys. We'll be back on the other side with more of the Multicultural AFL Footy Show. Welcome back as we look at the rest of the round 5. Saturday, the West Coast plays Sydney at Carrara, and Geelong at home takes on the Gold Coast, and that will be a huge test on the Suns. What are your thoughts, Javier?
Well, I suppose West Coast, we understand you don't want to play there, but at least you want to play AFL, so show us something. Yeah, so although it's going to be very hard against Sydney, I believe, because they are performing well, although they've been losing games, but still they're definitely playing better better than the West Coast, who looks far better on the paper with Tim Kelly new inclusion in their team. They should have won the matches, but I'm going to tip Sydney on that one, because I think they got the more urge and more hunger, and they're playing better as well. With the other one, Gold Coast, oh God, wouldn't that be an upset if they can beat Geelong in Geelong? And we've seen that before the season sort of started, and we heard about it, that there's going to be that many games at Geelong. We thought, oh wow, they got their fortress working at the moment. But the way Carlton played, and it has given probably insights to other teams as well, that how can we come at least close beating them as well. Yeah, so like how can they do it? So I believe Gold Coast, if they can get the tips from there, I'm pretty sure they should be able to perform. And I believe it's going to be a very close game as well, for my liking, because they're too fast at the moment. I think Geelong might have a little nervousness playing against them, but just for the tipping purposes, I would say Geelong will still win it.
Yes, you're right, saying about how it's going to be a big test for the Gold Coast, but they haven't played outside of the Gold Coast so far. I mean, they have played at the Gold Coast pretty much the entire season so far, so it's going to be a big test. I don't know if they can do it, but now is the right time to beat Geelong, because they are a bit flat. So Geelong for me, and Sydney will beat the West Coast, because that's another team that are just way too flat.
Thank you, guys. Western Bulldogs play North Melbourne at Marvel Stadium. This will be a big game, with the result being crucial in finishing in the top 4. Brisbane and Port Adelaide met head-to-head in a thrilling test of skills from the top 2 teams on the AFL ladder. Javier, the Doggies can win this?
Well, they can win this, but whether they will, that's a different story. Because the way North Melbourne are playing at the moment, and the pressure they are applying to other teams, we saw that phase, although the game against Sydney, when pressure was applied, although they did come on top, Bulldogs, but they were a bit wary at that some point as well. So lucky for them, they were able to tackle that pressure. However, the pressure from North Melbourne, the way they're playing at the moment, I believe it might be a bit more. And I'm sorry, although it's working for us anyway, that I tip against them and they're winning. So I'm going to tip against them again. I believe North Melbourne is going to win, and I'll be looking forward to the other game. That's Brisbane versus Port Adelaide. What a cracker of a game it's going to be, and I hope they both play to their full potential. A fearless game. I think there won't be many games where they might be missing Zorko, because he's probably out. But this might be one game where they probably miss his services, because they need to be at that absolute best to beat Port Adelaide. So we're a cracker of a game, but I'm still going to get a bit of advantage to Brisbane on that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, yes, of course, Zorko, you know, just the leadership that he brings into the team it's a big piece. But then again, you've got Hepwood and Cameron and all these like young guns that are flying at the moment for Brisbane. But having said that, Port Adelaide, they're not afraid to play in Queensland. I mean, the first game they beat Gold Coast, they smashed Gold Coast in round 1. So they're not afraid. And the way they're playing at the moment, Port Adelaide, they're just so good at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if Port Adelaide cause an upset, but I think Brisbane at home, they're just too comfortable, they're just too strong. So I think Brisbane for that. For the other game, the Bulldogs and North Melbourne, this is going to be a good game. I really do believe it. I think both teams are a similar sort of style and mentality. I think that North Melbourne at the moment, I think that they're just going to out-edge Western Bulldogs just because of the way they finish. They're the type that you will never think that you've beaten them until the final siren. So for me, I think the Western Bulldogs are going to have a bit of a tough task against North Melbourne. So North Melbourne for me.
Moving on, Sunday's matches. The Battle of the Wooden Spoon, Adelaide against Fremantle without Nat 5. Richmond and Melbourne from the MCG, both sides devoid of form but could be interesting. While the last game of the round, the GWS Giants at home challenge Hawthorn. Gabriel, certainly a couple of good games there.
Yes, and what you mentioned earlier about Nat Fyfe missing for Fremantle, that's going to be a big out. But Adelaide at the moment are so bad, your son's team can beat them quite easily. My nephew's under 9s can beat them at the moment. They're just doing so badly at the moment. I think that Fremantle, yeah, they're not doing so great, but they're not going so badly as to lose against Adelaide. I think Fremantle should win that one quite comfortably. Richmond and Melbourne is going to be interesting because these are two teams that really need to show their fans, their members, everyone, that their season isn't going to waste. I think that Melbourne have been extremely disappointing. We were expecting a little bit more. All this talk about how last year, just forget about it, we'll move on and all this sort of stuff. And really, there hasn't been that much of a difference. I mean, some really good players like Petrarca and Gawn and all that, they're not showing that, that hunger that they had, like when they made it all the way to the preliminary final 2 years ago. Even Oliver's been missing a bit. He hasn't been as profound as he has been recently. I feel sorry for Viney because he's probably the only one that just really, wants to get out there and play and do well. That's what it looks like from the outside looking in. But I think that Richmond, we've talked about Richmond earlier, they're in a mess. They really are. For their standards, for the way they play, for what they've done last year and 2 years before, that sort of way that they play where they're just so intent on getting the ball and winning and being the first to every contest, it's missing. These last few games, it's almost like a completely different team. It's almost like, I don't know if you remember Space Jam, where the bad guys touched the buzzwell, the monsters, and all the energy came out of the players. It's almost like that. It's almost like they're lifeless. There's, like what you said, no hunger. So for that, I think Melbourne probably going to win that game because they desperately need to get their season back into gear. Richmond, it's like, well, we won last year, so it doesn't really matter. But GWS and Hawthorn, I'm still not entirely convinced by GWS. I think Hawthorn, with the likes of Alistair Clarkson at the helm, they're capable of doing all sorts of great things. So I think Hawthorn, for me, should win that one. But it could be a close one.
Yeah, well, I agree. GWS it will be a test for them. Although I do believe that they had a lot of potency at this game when they played against the Collingwood. But Hawks is a different team altogether. As you mentioned, Alistair Clarkson, which is a big factor, and the midfield is gelling and they know where the goals are coming from. I believe they might have a little bit of edge over GWS. I agree with that. And with Richmond, I believe it looks like because of their fans are gone, they don't know if they're playing for anyone or not. Looks like that's what they're feeling at the moment. They really need to bounce back, and I believe Melbourne should take this opportunity and take this game on and win this one. And I believe they will as well this time. And Adelaide Crows and Fremantle, boy, that's we've been saying that Nat 5 needs the support of other players. Now he's gone, so it's a good time for Adelaide to prove something as well. At least how you mentioned as Adelaide stop people like him saying that they're that bad. So come up with something.
I'm the only one.
Yeah, yeah, and we saw that with Tex Walker taking a bit of a leading role against Brisbane in the third quarter. So there was a phase where they sort of played some good footy as well. So hopefully they can play it for longer, and Crouch Brothers, like they can sort of do disposals which really mean good for the team. So I believe that's going to be the case. There might be a tight a couple of quarters at least, but Fremantle is going to come on top for me.
Which brings us to my tip selections. Carlton, Essendon, Sydney, Geelong, Western Bulldogs again, Port Adelaide, Fremantle, Melbourne and Hawthorn. That's all we have time for this week, but before we go, we have a short replay of the Saturday night's thriller between the Bombers and the Blues.
To cap an incredible night for this young man. Set shot, and he got too close to the man on the mark and sprayed it to the left.
Second, Saad's going to play on. He's going to go straight on the middle.
50 metres. Let's go.
And 50. So Saad's going to be advanced.
Hooker's got himself inside 50.
Stay out.
Look at them all streaming back into defence. Saad brought all the way into the centre. Going to launch a long torpedo. He's gone the barrel. Can they get a mark? Oh! What about Townsend? From nowhere, Jacob Townsend.
Right on the edge of his distance, though.
Kicked a couple of goals in the 2017 Premiership for the Tigers. Can he win the game for the Bombers? Jacob Townsend, has it got the journey? Just touched on the line.
Just got to not do any damage with this kick. Doherty pumps it wide. Listen to this. The Blues win it by the barest of margins.
We'll be back next week with more AFL news, reviews and previews. You can also watch our show on Aurora-Foxtel TV on Saturdays at midday or on the NEMBC YouTube. You can listen to the radio podcast on the Community Radio Network and the AFL news in 8 languages on select national multicultural radio stations. You can also follow the weekly footy report and tip selections from the NEMBC website. I am Vanessa Gatica.
I'm Harbeer Singh.
I'm Gabriel D'Angelo.
Thank you. See you next week.